Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. So today Guru Maharaj will enlighten us on the topic, the glories of Sri Advaita Acharya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mother Sudha.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll read from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And this is Adi Lila, chapter 6. And this is verse number, well, let's take some of the earlier verses. This is verse number 4. Mahavishnu Jagakartam, Mahavishnu Jagakartam, Mayaya Srijadatam, Tasya Avataram Evayam, Advaitacharya Ishwaram. Lord Advaitacharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. Advaitam Harinam Dvatad, Acharyam Bhaktis Samsanat, Bhakta Avataram Ishyatam, Advaitacharyam Asraye. Because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him. Advaitacharya Goshani Shakshariswaram Yaha Mahima Nahi Jivera Gocharam. Sri Advaitacharya is indeed directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His glory is beyond the conception of ordinary living beings. This is chapter 6. Mahavishnu Srita Karena Jagat Adikarya Tanra Avatara Shakshar Advaita Acharya. Mahavishnu performs all the functions for the creation of the universe. Sri Advaita Acharya is his direct incarnation.
Hare Krishna, sorry Guru Maharaj, which verse it is?
I just read from verse 7.
7, oh okay, thank you.
Ya Purusha Srishti Sthiti Karane Mayaya Ananta Brahmanda Srishti Karane Lilaya. That Purusha creates and maintains with his external energy, creates innumerable universes in his pastimes. Jayananta Murti Karine Prakash Eka Murti Karena Brahmande Pravesh. By his will, he manifests himself in unlimited forms in which he enters each and every universe. Se Purusheda Amsa Advaita Nahi Kichubeda Sariva Vishesha Tanu Nahika Vicheda. Sri Advaita Acharya is the plenary part of that Purusha, and so is not different from him. Indeed, Sri Advaita Acharya is not separate, but another form of the Purusha. Sahaya Karena Tanu Lahiya Pradhan Koti Brahmande Karena Itshaya Nirman. He, Advaita Acarya, helps in the pastimes of the Purusha, with whose material energy and by whose will he creates universes. Om Gyan Tivedandasya Gina Gina Salakaya Chaksu Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Satarine Vanchakopa Rubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Hari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama 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 Hari Hari. I'll read one more verse. Jagamandala Advaita Mangala Gunadam Mangala Charitra Sada Mangala Yaranam. Being a reservoir of all auspicious attributes, Sri Advaita Acarya is all auspicious for the world. His characteristics, activities, and names are always auspicious. There's one verse, Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Svarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhakta Kyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. This verse describes that the absolute truth consists of 5 features: the incarnation, the expansion, the devotee avatar, the Shakti energy or the spiritual energy, internal energy, and the pure devotee. Each one represents one of the 5 members of the Panchatattva. Sri Advaita Acarya is none different than the Supreme Lord, although he is known as Bhakta Avatar. He descends as an expansion of Mahavishnu, or an incarnation of Mahavishnu, to assist Lord Chaitanya in his teachings and mission of spreading Krishna consciousness everywhere. The life of Advaita Acarya is quite extensive and interesting. This morning I spoke for a little under 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half, maybe a little bit more than an hour and a half. And that was recorded as part of my Srimad Bhagavatam class. If you want to hear that, you just have to connect with the Slovenian group. I don't know exactly their website, and see it's probably being posted on the website or in some feature of their outreach. But we'll speak a little bit to get an understanding of who Advaita Acarya is. It says he's Mahavishnu, and he is none different than Mahavishnu, in the sense that Mahavishnu is the first manifestation of the Supreme Lord, who brings about the creation of the material worlds. There are 3 manifestations of that. There is Mahavishnu, and then Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Mahavishnu is the feature of bringing about the creation after the interim period where there is no creation. There is what is called a time where all the living entities previously who were in the material world in the previous creation go merge back into the body of Mahavishnu. And they stay there for billions and billions of years, actually even longer. The interim period is a very extensive time period, according to our calculations. And then, according to the universal program given by the Lord himself, then the living entities get a chance to come out again and return to the material world in the particular body according to their karma in their past life, to take up material activities where they left off. These living entities reside in a sleep state in the body of Mahavishnu. When Mahavishnu wants to bring about the creation, he glances towards the pradhan. The pradhan is the aggregate of all the ingredients that make up the material creation, which are the five senses, the mind, the working senses, the karmendriyas and the karmendriyas and gyanendriyas, the sense objects, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, along with the mind, of course, yeah. And then that comes up to about 25 elements. They're all in an aggregate, unmanifested stage, more like an egg. When the Lord glances, that glance has three ingredients in it: the time factor, which governs the material world; the living entities who are in the body of Mahavishnu now are transformed or transported out of the body into that glance, and the last principle is Lord Shiva. So that glance contains these three elements, and when it hits the pradhan, it activates the pradhan, and then Brahma takes birth in the next expansion, and within the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. He appears, he's enlightened by the Lord within the heart and directed to formulate the bodies of the living entities, and then the next creation starts to unfold. Sometimes it's mentioned, and it's also mentioned, that Lord Advaita Acarya is a incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva, the original Shiva. The original Shiva also is a manifestation of the energy in the spiritual world coming from Mahavishnu, who takes assistance from Sadashiva to bring about the creation. That's why many times you hear in scriptures that Shiva is the father of all living entities. And that is correct, because he brings about, he assists Mahavishnu in that process of bringing the living entities back into the next creation. Without going into too much detail, if you read the Brahma Samhita, you'll find all of the details of how the whole creation starts to unfold. That's also mentioned in smaller details in the second and third canto, mostly second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Lord Advaita Acarya, he incarnated and he appeared 52 years before the advent of Lord Chaitanya, along with a few other manifestations of the Lord's energies, such as Haridas Thakur, Srivas Thakur, Mukunda, and a few others were there before Lord Chaitanya appeared. When Lord Chaitanya wanted to appear, he wanted to prepare for his appearance by sending forth some of his intimate associates to pave the way for the mission. Advaita Acarya was one of them. Now, the Advaita Acarya was at that time known as a Brahmana. He was a Vaishnava Brahmana living in Shantipur. But he would also have a house in Navadvip area also. He had two places. And when he was in Navadvip, Navadvip was the bastion or the center, the stronghold of intellectual knowledge, but not necessarily spiritual knowledge, a combination of material knowledge and knowledge about impersonalism. So observing the population at the time and seeing what were their activities in consciousness, Advaita Acharya became very concerned. Being in the mood of Lord Shiva, he is very compassionate towards the living entities. And so seeing the distressful conditions that the living entities were accepting as a form of happiness in the material world, we see that Maya has a certain element that she makes the living entity believe that suffering is enjoyment. Material world is only suffering, but she coats that so-called suffering with a little bit relief from that suffering, and that's called enjoyment. And people think that there's happiness in the material world, and that's which makes the world go on. But there is no happiness because the living entity is not material, and therefore the living entity cannot find happiness in something that is foreign to their nature. The living entities are pure spiritual energy, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Their only happiness is in connection with their actual constitutional position as servant to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Material happiness is a dark well where people enter looking for water. The well is completely dried up and dark. And sometimes because there may be some dew or some kind of dampness in the well, people think that there is water, and therefore they continue to look for that reservoir which never really appears. And then ultimately everything ends in due course of time. So the living entities somehow or other make plans to be happy here. So that was going on very strongly in the name of worshiping demigods for material benefits. And Advaita Acharya was becoming very disgusted and quite unhappy seeing that. In fact, at one point he became quite angry seeing how the living entities were wasting their life in pursuits of something very elevated materially, but still material. And therefore there is a statement saying that he wanted to rectify that situation by killing all those persons. In other words, killing their physical bodies. But he restrained himself from doing that, and then he thought, this is the work of the Supreme Lord. And so, using his power as a Supreme Lord, he is Mahavishnu himself, he decided to perform a ritual to bring about the advent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he went to the banks of the Ganga and established an altar there. And on the altar, he worshipped the Lord in his linga form, Lord Shiva actually. And he was praying to Lord Krishna to please come and do the work of saving the conditioned souls. We have to understand this is the nature of great souls. They're very concerned about the happiness of the general population of the world. A great soul will find happiness when others become happy and become distressful when others are distressed. Their distress is like the doctor's concern for a patient. It's not like they are experiencing the same distress, but the sadness or the unhappiness to see that others are suffering and wasting their life is the compassionate nature of the great souls, and therefore they want to do something to relieve that suffering. And so, wanting to relieve the suffering of the living entities, Advaita began this puja, offering tulsi leaves, sandalwood pulp with great prayers, calling very loudly for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It just so happened it was the time for the Lord to come anyway, but not to manifest his mercy in the form of the Sankirtan movement, but to come and to experience his own internal nature in the role of himself as the pure devotee who is experiencing himself in relationship to worshiping himself in the form of the Lord. So it coincided, and then the Lord, on the plea of Advaita Acarya to come and save the conditioned souls, he did. And that's very nicely described in the beginning of the seventh, I believe in the seventh chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita Ali Leela, how the Lord actually invented, well, the appearance of the Lord. I think it's in chapter 8 or 9, I'm not sure. But it describes how Lord Chaitanya came, and he came at a very interesting time. People generally would go to bathe in the holy rivers during an eclipse. An eclipse is considered to be inauspicious. There are solar eclipses, there are lunar eclipses. Both are inauspicious. It goes to the pastime wherein Rahu chased after the sun and moon in order to get revenge against them for revealing his disguise as a demon in order to get the nectar during the churning of the milk ocean. That's the whole story. And so he has eternal, we might say, long-term enmity against the sun and the moon. So solar and lunar eclipse is Rahu coming in front of the solar and the moon and the sun, and it's considered to be inauspicious. So when people are in the midst of that, they immediately go to the holy river and bathe, and they chant the holy names of the Lord. So Lord Chaitanya wanted to bring about his appearance in a very direct way according to his mission. So he arranged for himself to appear during a lunar eclipse. And therefore thousands of people were going into the holy rivers and chanting Hare Krishna, but actually, they were actually heralding or glorifying, welcoming the Lord in his incarnation as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Lord arranged that. When the Advaita Acarya heard that the Lord had appeared, he and Haridas Thakur, who had been together in Shantipur, started to dance in ecstasy. Both of them had simultaneously performed activities to bring about the Lord's appearance. Advaita through the puja, and Srila Haridas through chanting of the holy names of the Lord. So when they heard that the Lord had appeared, they became ecstatic. And immediately, the wife of Advaita Acarya, Sita Thakurani, she decided to go and bring gifts to the newborn baby who was now there in Navadvip Dham. So from her home in Shantipur, she traveled. And then, of course, it's described how she was so happy to see the child, knowing that this child was not just another child or even an enlightened child, but the Supreme Lord himself, who had come for the mission of compassion. Advaita Acarya had one particular concern during the time of Lord Chaitanya's advent, and that was that Advaita Acarya had taken initiation from Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was the root of the bhakti tree. That's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In other words, from Madhavendra Puri, the entire bhakti cult culminating in the appearance of Lord Chaitanya unfolded. Madhavendra Puri was such a great personality. He was an eternal associate of the Lord in the spiritual world. He came to bring pure devotional service, and he produced many disciples. One of the disciples was Ishwara Puri, who became the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master was Ishwara Puri, and Advaita Acarya had also taken initiation from Madhavendra Puri. And so Lord Chaitanya saw that Advaita Acarya is on the level of his spiritual master. And also, he also knew that Advaita Acarya was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Lord Chaitanya would always find reasons to glorify Advaita Acarya and even arrange for worship of Advaita Acarya. Now for a devotee of the Lord, of course, he is Mahavishnu, but he's in the role of his own devotee. For a devotee of the Lord, a devotee of the Lord doesn't want to be worshipped. They want to offer worship. Sometimes a devotee of the Lord will accept worship only to please those who want to offer worship. But otherwise, they are not interested in receiving any type of worship. They are in the mood of wanting to worship. So Advaita would like to glorify Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya would turn it around and glorify Advaita. And this was too much for Advaita to accept. So everything he did to try to change the mind of Lord Chaitanya would never work. So he was thinking, what can I do to get Lord Chaitanya to accept me as his servant? So it's described that he decided to do something that would anger Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya came to establish pure devotional service in the mood of the Vraja damsels, or the residents of Vrindavan. And Advaita Acarya knew that any other philosophical teachings would cause great disturbance to the mind of Lord Chaitanya, especially teachings that were Mayavad or impersonal. So what he decided to do is go to hear from teachers. Every evening he would go out and hear from the one scripture called Yoga Vashishta. Now, Yoga Vashishta teaches that karma and gyan, knowledge and renunciation, are superior to bhakti. But where we know that actually knowledge and gyan support bhakti in the initial stage of the practitioner's execution of devotional service, and later are no longer necessary, because bhakti in itself contains everything, including karma and jnana. And so this went on for some time, and Lord Chaitanya became aware of it, and he decided that now he wanted to correct Advaita. So one day, he said to Lord Nityananda, Lord Nityananda, let us go see Advaita in Shantipur. So taking the Ganges, they followed the Ganges, which leads from Navadvip to Shantipur. As they were going along the banks of the Ganges, heading towards Shantipur, they passed this little hermitage. And Lord Chaitanya became curious. Oh, he said to Lord Nityananda, who lives in that hermitage? And Nityananda immediately said, actually, there is a sannyasi there. That is his residence. Oh, really? let us take the blessings of the sannyasi, because to get the blessings of a sannyasi means to get the blessings of the Lord. So they went and walked into the hermitage, and there was this elderly gentleman there. And he saw them and he welcomed them. They sat down. Lord Chaitanya decided, well, in the presence of a sannyasi, you must ask some question. Not that you sit there and don't say anything, or you talk about something material. No, the sannyasis or the gurus are meant to give transcendental knowledge, and that is their service. So he asked, my dear sannyasi, can you please explain to us what is the goal of life? And the sannyasi immediately responded, the goal of life is to eat, drink, and be merry, and to enjoy the things of this world. Lord Chaitanya was not so happy to hear that, and immediately he responded by saying, actually, the goal of life is to worship the Supreme Personality of Sri Krishna and Sri Vrindavan Dham with devotion. Immediately, the sannyasi became a little disturbed and said, just see, here we are, very elderly and very much experienced in the activities of worldly affairs. And here we're listening from the mouths of these babes who have just appeared in the world about what is the truth of life. And so there started to ensue a little bit of a discourse or discord, a discorded discord. And then Lord Nityananda said, no, actually, let us have prasadam. And the sannyasi said, oh, yes, we will have prasadam. So he turned and he summoned his wife. He was a grihastha sannyasi. He summoned his wife and said, bring prasad. So she came with a plate of foodstuffs and offered it to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Lord Chaitanya said, actually, today I plan on fasting, so please just offer me a little bit of fruit. The sannyasi said, would you like some bliss? Bliss? Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya turned to Lord Nityananda and said, what does he mean by bliss? Well, he wants to know if you want some alcohol, some vino, wine. Lord Chaitanya immediately looked at Lord Nityananda and said, let's go. In so many words, they got up and they ran out of the house, jumped into the Ganges with all their clothes on to get purified from such inauspicious association. It says when you hear from people who appear to be in spiritual garb about material happiness and Mayavadi philosophy, there is only one thing you can do. You should immediately take bath in the sacred river to purify yourself from that unholy contamination. So after some time, they came out, dried themselves off, continued on their way to Shantipur, following the road along the Ganges. Finally, they came to the Shantipur, and there they arrived at the house of Sri Advaita. Advaita was there in the courtyard, along with his wife Sita Thakurani and Srila Haridas Thakur. Lord Chaitanya stayed at a distance. He looked at Advaita with his eyes giving a piercing glance in the direction of Advaita. And he became more and more angry, thinking, what is this Advaita doing? I've come to establish pure devotional service and he's teaching something else. And so at one point, the Lord became angry enough and he started to run directly at Advaita, and he came up to Advaita and jumped on Advaita and started to beat him. And Advaita was so happy, he's getting the mercy of the Lord. But Sita Thakurani, she was thinking, oh my God, my Lord, what are you doing? He's an old man, you're going to kill him. Lord Chaitanya didn't hear anything. He just kept beating Advaita. And Advaita was just smiling and having a good time getting the mercy of the Lord. And Srila Haridas Thakur was there and he was laughing. And then Lord Chaitanya seemed to come back to a different consciousness, and he stopped and he looked at Advaita. He said, "My dear Advaita, what are you doing? You know why I have come, and now you're teaching something else." And Lord Advaita Acharya said, "My dear Lord, thank you. Now you have accepted me as your servant. Now I am in my rightful position." So Advaita Acharya had arranged, he didn't want to be worshipped. He wanted to be one who gives worship. He's teaching also at the same time that a devotee never likes to be worshipped, but a devotee likes to worship the Lord, worship the other devotees, worship the spiritual master. That is the actual focus of a devotee. Even the spiritual master who's in the role of a devotee doesn't really find great happiness in being worshipped, but he knows it's beneficial for the disciple. Therefore, he accepts that role of accepting worship on behalf of the Supreme Lord in order to benefit the disciple so they can get the mercy of the Lord. And so that's a wonderful pastime with the Sri Advaita Acharya. There are many other wonderful pastimes. Also, Lord Advaita always wanted to glorify Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya would avoid it as much as possible. One time, when Lord Chaitanya was not there and Advaita was there with all of the disciples, he said to, not disciples, but followers of Lord Chaitanya, he said to all of the devotees, "Let us have kirtan." So, but we will not chant Krishna's name, we will chant Gauranga, Gauranga, Gauranga. So they all got together, and now the devotees were a little bit feeling anxious. Oh my God, if Lord Chaitanya he sees we're chanting Gauranga, he will become angry with us. The Lord Advaita was so adamant and determined, and he kept encouraging devotees, let's chant. So Kirtan began, and they were chanting Gauranga, Gauranga, Gauranga over and over loudly. And then from a distance, Lord Chaitanya heard the Kirtan. He was thinking, oh, the devotees are having Kirtan, let me go. So he started to walk in that direction. As he got closer, he started to hear. And then he was thinking, what are they chanting? As he got closer, he could understand they were chanting Gauranga. At one point he stopped, he looked, and then Advaita noticed him. And then as soon as the Lord Chaitanya came, the devotees started to slow down in their kirtan, but Advaita said, no, chant louder, chant more. And so the devotees started to chant louder, and they were chanting Gauranga. Lord Chaitanya just turned around and walked away, went back to his place, closed the door, and went to sleep. Later on, Srivas Thakur came to the room where Lord Chaitanya was staying. The Lord had awakened, and he came to see Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya immediately said to Srivas Thakur, what are the devotees chanting? Srivas said, well, he didn't say anything actually. He held his hands above his head with his palms flat open in the direction of the sun. Lord Chaitanya said, what are you doing? Srivas said, I am blocking the sun with my hands. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, you can't do that. You can't block the sun with your hands. Yes, that is true, my Lord, and therefore you cannot hide yourself from us. And so Advaita Srivas became the spokesman from all the devotees who wanted to glorify Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya remained silent. He had taken the service of not accepting worship because he wanted to teach that the living entity in the material world is not God. It was quite fashionable, especially at that particular time, that people would worship and then think that through their worship, they can actually become the Supreme Lord. And they would perform various kinds of rituals and whatever. And Srila Prabhupada comments this in a very direct and very clear way, that no one can become the Lord. The Lord is the Lord, and the living entities are the living entities. The Lord is one. That position is already filled. No one can become the Supreme Lord, but we are living entities, parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but we are intimately connected to the Lord. Nityo, Nityanam, Chaitanas, Chaitananam, Eko Bahudam Vidadati Kaman. There is one eternal, Nityo, who are maintaining all of the other eternals, Nityanam. So that one eternal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one else can have that particular feature or position. So it's very fashionable today. Even today, you'll see there are so-called incarnations of God running around canvassing for disciples. It's happening even today. Or they consider themselves incarnations or manifestations or God himself. This is all some form of cheating, and they should be completely rejected and ignored. So Lord Chaitanya, knowing that this was the nature of the living entities to try to surreptitiously or falsely take that position, anyone who would call him God, he would say, no, I am simply the servant of the Lord. And he would block his ears. He wanted to teach, although he was the supreme and he was worshipable in that position, still, he rejected any types of worship, just to teach from the position of a devotee. There are many, many beautiful stories in the life of Sri Advaita Acharya. This particular, he is Mahavishnu incarnate, and he is a combined form of Sadashiva. There's another nice story where during the Mahapragash Leela, when Lord Chaitanya took the position of being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in other words, he revealed himself of actually who he was. And at that time, he was giving blessings and benedictions to all of his devotees. He said to Advaita at one point, Advaita, do you remember when you were reading Bhagavad Gita and you came across that one verse and you did not understand the verse? And you were trying so many ways to understand and you could not understand, and you were thinking, oh, if I cannot understand this, then what is the use of my existence? I should give up my life. So Advaita was prepared to give up his life because he could not understand one verse from the Bhagavad Gita. What is it? Sarvata panipada tat sarvato shiksharo mukham. Sarvato shriti lo. Okay. Go to chapter number, I think it's chapter 14, and I'm not sure of the verse. Sarvata. Let me see, it's a very interesting verse. I can remember. I have my Bhagavad Gita right here. I'll see if I can find it. And that way it'll make it easier for you to find. Let's see. Let me see if I can find a Sarvata. I'll look it up in the verse section of the Gita here. S-A-R. S-A-I, Sarvata. Yeah, chapter 13, verse number 14. 13, 14.
Okay.
Sarvata panipadanta sarvato shikshiro mukham sarvata shrutimaloke sarvam avriktitishtuti. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. After reading this verse, Advaita Acarya could not understand what the Lord was saying here. But it's the indication that the super soul is everywhere and he is also a personality. Therefore, he is all pervading. I can't remember in detail what was the confusion on the part of Advaita, but he was feeling unhappy because he could not understand what the meaning of this verse was. He decided to commit suicide by drowning himself in the Ganges. This is how serious he was about this verse. But Lord Chaitanya, wanting to prevent this from happening, entered the mind and heart of Advaita and revealed to him the meaning of the verse. So, and then Lord Chaitanya told that to Advaita during the Mahaprakash Leela, how I came and actually revealed that. So, yeah. The actual translation that Advaita had didn't have the word super soul in there. And so when he read the verse, he was thinking, is this the manifestation of the impersonal feature of the Lord? And so he could not understand how it could be an element of the personal feature of the Lord. Now, there's much more to it than that. You'd have to read the actual discussion. I think it's mentioned somewhere in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's a very difficult verse to understand, but one can get an idea by hearing from the commentaries of the great acharyas. So the relationship between Advaita Acharya and Lord Chaitanya was very intimate. At one point, towards the end of Lord Chaitanya's stay, Advaita Acharya decided now the Lord has come, his mission has been successful, therefore he should return back to the spiritual world. Having called the Lord, now he arranged for the Lord to go back. And he wrote a verse, and in the verse it says that there's no more demand for rice in the marketplaces. Everyone is satisfied. Something to that effect. That was written in a kind of a cryptic explanation. And he gave it to Jagadananda Pandit to give it to Lord Chaitanya, who did. And when Lord Chaitanya read it, he understood. Now, Advaita is telling me it's time to return to the spiritual world. The devotees, when they read the verse, they could not understand it. The Lord revealed that, he has called me, and now he is asking me to leave, go back. So what he was saying is that before there was a great demand for spiritual knowledge, but now everyone is satisfied. Therefore, your mission is complete, successful. Go back to there's no more demand in the marketplace for rice. There's no more demand for the need of spiritual knowledge. Everything has been given. So he sent Lord Chaitanya back. And Lord Chaitanya, on the request of Advaita Acarya, wound up his pastimes in the material world. So these are some of the many pastimes of Sri Advaita Acarya. We read this chapter 6 of Adi Leela, we'll find that it goes into great detail in the philosophical teachings centered around the nature and position of Mahavishnu in relationship to the creation and Lord Advaita Acharya's connection with that Mahavishnu as being an incarnation. And of course, he is also Sada Shiva. It's a combined incarnation to show compassion to the fallen conditioned souls and to teach the process of pure devotional service. So I'll stop there, and we would welcome any devotees who would like to speak something on this very auspicious day. Some realization, something in relationship to Sri Advaita Acarya.
Thank you, Gurumaharaj. Thank you so much for the very wonderful class. Thank you for explaining us the creation of this material world and beautiful pastimes of Sri Advaita Acarya and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thank you so much. I really like the pastimes where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was offering worship to the Advaita Acarya, and Advaita Acarya didn't like it. So he wanted to show that, pure devotees, they don't like to take worship. Instead, they want to worship Lord and the devotees and the spiritual master. Yeah, thank you so much again for the beautiful pastimes. Dear devotees, if you have any questions, comments, realizations, please unmute, or you can type in the chat box, or you can just raise your hand. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And please, we humbly request all the devotees to turn on their cameras.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Any questions? Yeah, devotees, any questions? Please do share any comments or realizations. Yeah, Sridevi Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Sudha. Please accept my humble obeisances, dear Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you. Thank you for this very wonderful delineation of the pastimes of the Lord as Advaita Acharya and Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. We were just transported to Shantipur and Nadi. It was wonderful. Guru Maharaj, today in the temple, a beautiful Abhishek of the Lord took place. And of course, there was beautiful Kirtan, and morning there was a class also. And as the description of Lord went Advaita as Mahavishnu is so powerful that he is in charge of the creation. From his pores, universes emerge. And yet, in his form of the devotee of the Lord, he is begging the Lord to come as Lord Chaitanya. So to me, I was struck by how much the Lord himself, when he decides to perform the role of a devotee, how perfectly he performs it. So he's all powerful. So I was very much struck by that, and I just wanted to share that. That's all.
Thank you. Yeah. The Lord is perfect in whatever role he plays. And when he plays the role of the devotee, he is the best teacher. I mean, he comes in order to manifest his mood of teaching in that role. And therefore, one who studies the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with the commentaries given in relationship to his activities by the Acharyas, one can understand what is devotional service and how to execute it. And we would always hear that statement. When the teacher takes the part of the student and teaches the student from the position of a student, that is the best teacher. That is the best teachings. He's showing the student how to become the student. Although he's the teacher, that's Mahaprabhu. If we take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we will have no problems in Krishna consciousness. If we neglect Mahaprabhu and go around him and just worship in any way, we will never understand Krishna consciousness, nor we will be able to have a clear understanding of what to do in devotional service. Mahaprabhu has specifically come in this age as the manifestation of pure devotional service, imbued with his own compassionate nature to the fullest extent. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Karuna Avatar. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahiyanya. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sanodido Gorodaya Pushpanvanto Chitta Sando Tamo Ludo. Both Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya have risen over the horizon of Gaudiya. Like the sun and the moon have dissipated the darkness in this age of Kali by giving the light of transcendental knowledge in the form of this Sankirtan movement. Although this age of Kali is so bad, it's full with unlimited numbers of difficulties, crises, bad qualities. As it's mentioned by Sukadeva Goswami, Kalir Dosha Nidhi Rajan. And Dosha Nidhi is an ocean of faults in this age. You try to correct one problem, you create two more. It's just so bad. And relationships in this age are so much strained by the atmosphere of Kali Yuga that people don't know what is a relationship anymore. Everyone is selfishly engaged in activities, using each other to fulfill their own desires. Mahaprabhu has come with the medicine. Eneche esari mare nasi varalagi harinam mahamantra lao tumi magi. Now he's come with that medicine, and not only is he offering the medicine, but he's taking the medicine himself as to demonstrate the efficacy of the medicine. And he's showing that this medicine not only cures all diseases, but it brings one to the stage unlimited spiritual happiness. When we take shelter of Mahaprabhu, we are taking shelter of Krishna and Sri Vrindavan. No difference.
Good, Maharaj. You mentioned like absolute truth consists of 5 features. I couldn't get the last one. In expansion, devotee avatar, Shakti avatar.
Pure devotee, Sri Thakur is the pure devotee.
Oh, okay. It's pure devotees. Okay.
Incarnation, expansion, devotee avatar, devotee energy, and pure devotee.
Thank you very much. Guru Maharaj, just Mike, I have a question. Like you mentioned the past time, right? So Advaita Acarya, he couldn't understand the verse 13.14, right? So I mean, he is an incarnation of Mahavishnu. So what is the reason, like why he couldn't understand, like what?
Why does the Lord play the role of being bewildered by his own energy? To teach us that such verses cannot be understood so easily. Although we may think we understand. Yeah, it's a principle of teaching. That if you want the knowledge, simply by reading directly the Shastras is an incomplete way to gain knowledge. Although one can gain knowledge to a certain extent. Therefore, the commentaries on the verses reveal what is the actual meanings of the verses. That's why Bhaktivedanta commentaries in all of his writings are the expression of that knowledge in clarity. It gives a clear understanding of everything. So just to read the verse is not enough. But years ago, great souls could just read the verse and they would understand it. But we don't have that acumen. We don't have that adhikari. We need to hear from the acharyas, especially from Srila Prabhupada.
Okay. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. Yeah. Devotees, any more questions, comments, realizations? I don't see any questions. Yeah, Sridevi Mataji, you have any questions?
Thank you, Siddharth. Guru Maharaj, if you will be so kind as to explain that beautiful pastime where Lord Chaitanya says Sati Mata will not get love of God because she has offended Advaita.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I forgot to tell that this morning also. Yeah, this was at the Mahaprakash Leela when Lord Chaitanya was giving out benedictions and blessings to everyone. And the devotees were always finding ways to try to benefit others by requesting the Lord to benedict a certain person. So a group of devotees came and offered a prayer on behalf of Sachi Mata to get her blessings from the Lord. The Lord became a little pensive and immediately became quiet. And then at one point he appeared to show a little bit of anger. And then he responded, my mother, she is an offender. When the devotees heard that, they were shocked. My God, Lord, your mother, she is the mother of the universe. She, she brought you into the world. She is worshipable by all of us. And then Lord Chaitanya explained. He said that when my brother, Sarup, Vishwarup, was starting to go to school and learning, he also took knowledge and instructions from Advaita. And he was hearing from Advaita quite regularly. He had given up his own studies in school just to spend time with Advaita. After sufficiently associating and hearing from Advaita, he decided to leave the world, not to get married, and take up the renounced mode of life, and he left. He became a sannyasi called Shankararanya. That was his actual sannyas name. But when he left, no one saw him after that. He completely went away. And then, not long after that, Lord Chaitanya would also associate and hear from Advaita. So when Sachimata realized that her second son was hearing also, she was also disturbed, thinking now my other son will also be God. So this Advaita, he is not Advaita. Advaita means one with truth, but he is Dvaita, he is dualistic. But she didn't speak it, she just thought of it in her mind. So she found some fault with the Dvaita in her mind. And so Lord Chaitanya wanted to bring that out. And he did, just to show that, of course, she could not commit an offense, but he used his mother as an example to teach that one should not even hold negative thoughts towards another devotee, even within the mind. Although there's no reaction from that because of the concessionary principle of Kali Yuga, that one does not get reactions for negative thoughts, but gets benedictions for positive thoughts. Still, the Lord wanted to indicate that we should not keep anything negative about a devotee in their mind. And so he used his mother as an example. And then she was also there. And then the devotee said, well, what can she do to get relieved of this offense? Well, she will have to take the dust of the lotus feet of Advaita on her head. Now, Advaita, when he heard that, he was thinking, my foot dust on the head of the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was not at all willing. So he avoided that. But then the kirtan came later, and when the kirtan came, there was ecstasy, and the Advaita fell unconscious. And at that time, Lord Chaitanya indicated to his mother, here's your chance. And she took the cue, went over and took the dust and put it on her head. And so Lord Chaitanya wanted to teach, yes, devotees are special, even mental negativities should be dispensed with and removed even within the mind.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. That was very nice.
Anasuya, are you there? I can see your smiling face.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I'm just getting my Vrinda ready for the day, the school day.
Okay, nice to see you. It's been a long time. I do have a question for you, but I don't want to ask it in a public forum. I was wondering if I could call you right after this little session is over. It'll just take a minute or two.
Okay, Guru Maharaj.
As soon as we're done, I'll just give you a quick call.
Okay.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming. I hope you and the family are happy.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Haribo. Anasuya's mother, Hare Krishna. She's there too. Gogurani Singh. She comes on as my obeisances to you, Hare Krishna.
She doesn't know how to use Zoom well, Guru Maharaj.
That's okay. Neither do I.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Devotees, any last minute questions for Guru Maharaj?
Okay, have a wonderful Advaita Acharya's appearance day. Read if you're nearby a local temple, and I'm sure there's some kind of ceremony for celebrating this very auspicious occasion. Go to the temple, take part. As Sri Devi mentioned, in Mayapur, they had Abhishek, they had class, and they had other ceremonies glorifying, featuring today's auspicious day. Here in Ljubljana, it is now almost 2:15. At 5 o'clock, we'll have an Abhishek of the deity, a small deity of Advaita. And at the same time, after that, there'll be Kirtan. And then after Kirtan, I think there'll be a class by His Holiness Paladananda Maharaj.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the very
Thank
nice.
you, Sudha, for doing your very wonderful way of hosting us today.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj, for your valuable time and association.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Very nice class. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So tomorrow is another glorious day in the lives of great souls. So tomorrow is Bhishmastami, and we'll be speaking a little bit about the glories and activities of Grandfather Bhishmadev.
Sure, Guru Maharaj.
Very nice.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice to see all of you, my obeisances, and have a wonderful day. And take time and gain the mercy of these days. Are very merciful. If we center our activities around the glories of that personality who appears on that day, there is special mercy available. So hear and chant the glories of Sri Advaita.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Sure.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Thank you.